General Hospital spoilers hint that Maxie Jones may be getting married after her coma. But will Nathan West or Damian Spinelli be the groom? Maxie is currently fighting to wake up due to an undisclosed enzyme in her bloodstream. Liesl Obrecht expressed anxiety about Maxie falling into a coma, and Maxie's storyline appears to be heading in that route for her brief exit. Maxie, on the other hand, will be returning down the road and possibly getting married again. Let us discuss the possibility of Maxie having another marriage ceremony. In the August 20th episode of General Hospital, Spinelli attempted to get Maxie to open her eyes so he could ask her to marry him. That plot failed, but it's apparent Spinelli intends to ask Maxie as soon as she awakens. Of course, if Nathan is still alive, things may become even more problematic. The program has not announced if Ryan Pavey would return as Nathan or another character, but we must contemplate the prospect of a Maxie-Nathan reunion. Maxie's spouse, Nathan, died unexpectedly in 2018, which saddened her. If the true Nathan reappears, as Britt Westbourne has, Maxie and Nathan may be able to reconcile again. Maxie may need fresh documents if she wants Nathan to be her legal husband again. Besides, Nathan and Maxie would undoubtedly want to reaffirm their vows anyhow, so they might as well throw another large wedding party. Spinelli would be devastated if he had to see Maxie marry someone else at this point, but it is possible that he will have to. On the other hand, Pavey's character could be a clone or another form of imposter. It's even feasible that Peter August has returned from the dead and decided to pose as Nathan using plastic surgery or a convincing mask. In that situation, Maxie may experience additional Nathan anguish in the end. It could lead to Maxie turning to Spinelli as her constant source of comfort and lifelong person, thus he might still fulfill his wedding fantasy after all. According to General Hospital teasers, Maxie may be planning a post-coma wedding, so stay tuned for any updates on her upcoming nuptials. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Jordan Ashford went undercover to expose Jen Sidwell. However, she is unable to locate any evidence of any crimes. She has decided to enjoy the financial opportunities and difficulties of her current employment. However, could she know that he is as filthy as everyone believes? Continue reading and let's explore the possibilities. Undercover mission. After moving to Port Charles, Sidwell began building a lot of connections very fast. He is also a very smooth talker. Jordan chose to quit Mayor Laura Collins' office and go undercover. The purpose was to reveal Sidwell's wrongdoing. However, Jordan recently acknowledged to Laura that she has uncovered no evidence of any crimes. Perks and pay. Jordan has resolved to simply enjoy the money she is paid by Sidwell. The previous commissioner appreciates the challenge of his position. Then she decided to splurge on a new apartment, which would ordinarily be out of her budget. Jordan also intends to hire a highly pricey and well-known designer. Anna Devane's concern. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Anna Devane just reconnected with Jordan. However, the commissioner was skeptical when Jordan decided to just adjust to her new lifestyle. In addition to all of this, Jordan appears to enjoy working for Sidwell. He listens to her thoughts and treats her as an equal. However, the easy sailing may encounter an iceberg. Maxie Jones. Poisoning. Maxie Jones fell and appears to have entered a coma following a heart attack. That heart attack was caused by something outside of her body. Lucas Jones stated that the patient's heart is perfectly fine. He spoke with Brooklyn Quartermain about any potential allergic responses. When he inquired about items, Lucy Coe interrupted. She appeared to be in a rush to remove the deception products out harm's way. Is it feasible that Sidwell poisoned Maxie, and Lucy was involved? Even further, what happens when Jordan discovers the truth? She may not be able to afford to let it all go, posing a fresh moral quandary for her. Jordan is a very moral individual who always strives to do the right thing. However, if she becomes too comfortable with the money, she may help cover up some of Sidwell's crimes. We'll have to keep watching to find out. Share your opinions in the comments area below. Keep watching ABC soap operas to find out what happens next. Maxie gently opened her eyes, the sterile aroma of antiseptic still hanging in the air around her, as the buzz of machines filled the quiet hospital room. It had been weeks since the accident, weeks since the world around her had crumbled, and now, recovering from a coma she hardly remembered entering, she found herself staring at the broken pieces of her life and her heart. Everything felt strangely familiar while somehow being completely alien. Her last recollections before the darkness fell were vague, including laughter, tears, promises made and secrets uttered. And now, as her vision cleared and the reality of her circumstances set in, so did the weight of the decisions ahead. Because Maxie Jones, the epicenter of love, drama, and heartache in Port Charles, was meant to be preparing her marriage. But nothing was simpler anymore. There were two men who had claimed her heart in very different ways. Nathan West, who had loved her with unflinching devotion, and Damien Spinelli, her lifelong best friend, scheme partner, and the father of her daughter Georgie, who still held a unique piece of her soul. Maxie understood, somewhere between the recollections and the coma-induced nightmares, that she had made vows she could not remember. One of them thought he was her future, while the other claimed she had chosen him as well, and Maxie couldn't recall which was correct. Felicia hurried to Maxie's side, tears spilling in her mother's eyes as she grabbed her into a shaking hug. "Sweetheart," Felicia said quietly, her voice cracking, "you're awake. Thank God." However, Maxie, feeling sleepy and disoriented, struggled to concentrate. Her attention shifted from Felicia to Mac, who stood by the entrance, obviously relieved but visibly uncomfortable. Maxie quickly recognized that her parents were keeping something from her, something they weren't ready to express aloud. Nathan entered the room, and the reality became evident. His suit was nicely pressed, and he gently grabbed her hand. His smile was optimistic but guarded. "Maxie," he whispered softly, his thumb brushing over her knuckles, "I've been waiting for this moment." Then, seconds later, Spinelli stood in the doorway, holding Georgie in his arms, his visage similarly overcome with emotion. The tension in the air was intense, almost suffocating, and Maxie's chest clenched as the two men locked gaze across the room. "Have you been waiting?" Maxie inquired Nathan hesitantly, her voice quiet but intrigued. Nathan's gaze softened. "I want you to wake up and we may marry. The date is already set, Maxie. The invitations have been sent." Maxie's lips parted slightly in surprise. She promised him what? Her heart raced as memories flashed across her mind. Nathan on one knee, a brilliant ring, and her cries of excitement. But then another rush of memories hit her. Spinelli holding her hand late at night, whispering, "Maybe we finally have our chance," and her leaning into him, pledging to work it out. Two promises. Two dudes. One heart was ripped in two. She turned to Spinelli, her voice shaking. "And you?" His lips curved into a small smile, but his eyes revealed his pain. "You said you loved me, Maximista. You claimed the coma was a wake-up call. That we couldn't waste any more time." His voice trembled, and his words were tinged with love and anguish. Felicia quickly placed her hands on her daughter's shoulders, as if to ground her in this tornado. "Sweetheart, you were confused," Felicia replied gently, her eyes darting to Nathan, her quiet sympathy for him obvious. "You were afraid before the accident. You weren't thinking clearly." But Maxie wasn't convinced. The dreams she had while unconscious were vivid, entwined with her waking feelings, moments with Nathan that made her feel safe, valued, and entire, juxtaposed with recollections of Spinelli that elicited laughter, nostalgia, and a sense of being seen. In the days that followed, as Maxie recovered, Nathan and Spinelli became constants in her life. Nathan brought her flowers and spoke quietly about their future together, discussing plans for a home and family, whereas Spinelli brought Georgie's drawings, inside jokes, and a warmth that Nathan could never fully mimic. It was as if she was caught between two versions of herself, the Maxie who had matured and desired stability, and the Maxie who yearned for the wild, messy, unpredictable love that had always defined her existence. Complicating matters further, the wedding arrangements continued to move forward. Felicia and Mac had planned everything prior to the disaster, including the dress fittings, the venue, and the guest list. Nathan's mother had even flown in, and the entire population of Port Charles appeared to be expecting Maxie Jones to marry Nathan West soon. However, Maxie's heart was pounding with indecision. Late one night, she found herself sitting in the hospital garden, the moonlight shining on her pale skin as she struggled to breathe through the commotion. That's when Spinelli emerged, unsure but determined. He sat next her carefully, allowing the silence to settle before speaking. "I don't want to make this any harder for you, Maximista," he murmured softly, "but I can't pretend I don't love you. I can't watch you marry him if you still want us." Her throat clenched and tears blurred her vision. Spinelli, she muttered. I'm not sure what's real anymore. I'm not sure what I promised, why or when. I can't hurt either of you, but I can't hurt myself either. Spinelli was genuinely moved by her vulnerability and lacked a witty comeback or grand statement. He simply nodded, his eyes weeping, and kissed her forehead before walking away, leaving her with a gnawing pang of doubt. Meanwhile, Nathan confided with Dante at the PCPD, his frustration clear. I thought I knew where we stood, Nathan said, his voice low and strained. But now she is different. She glances at Spinelli as if he is still everything. And I cannot compete with history, Dante. I'm not sure if I should fight harder or let her go. Dante clasped him on the shoulder. If she is the one, you struggle. But don't force her into anything she's not prepared for. You'll lose her that way. As the wedding date approached, Maxie's worry increased. Her nightly dreams were filled with memories and fears. In one, she walked down the aisle toward Nathan, only to see Spinelli take his seat at the altar. In another, Spinelli sought for her hand, but Nathan drew her away. Maxie awoke from her nightmares drenched in perspiration, realizing that she wasn't simply deciding between two guys, but also between two destinies, two identities, and two versions of herself. Chaos reigned behind the scenes on the wedding day. Felicia fretted over Maxie's outfit, and Lulu tried to remain calm, but Maxie's hands trembled so fiercely that she couldn't handle the bouquet. Her reflection in the mirror didn't really resemble her. Her grin was tight, and her eyes were hollow with uncertainty. Lulu caught her eyes in the glass and gently inquired, Are you sure? Maxie pondered for a long minute before murmuring, No. Outside, the chapel buzzed with expectancy, with Nathan impatiently waiting at the altar and Spinelli seated among the guests, his face pale but composed as he clasped Georgie's tiny hand. Every second felt heavier than the last as Maxie remained transfixed behind the doors, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst. The music began, signaling her to walk, but she was unable to move. Maxie finally turned to Felicia, tears running down her face. I can't do this, she admitted, her voice breaking. It is not like this. Not until I know. As the doors opened and Maxie stepped onto the aisle, she turned to face the crowd rather than Nathan. Her voice quivered as she talked, but her tone had become more confident. I love both of you, she admitted, glancing first at Nathan and then at Spinelli. But until I know where my heart truly belongs, I can't marry either of you. The stillness that followed was deafening, the pain tangible. Nathan's jaw tightened, his blue eyes brimming with unshed tears, and Spinelli's lips shook as he hugged Georgie tighter. Felicia clasped her palm to her mouth, Mac lowered his gaze to the floor, and the entire chapel appeared to hold its breath. And with that, Maxie turned and walked away from her own wedding, leaving a room full of astonished expressions and broken expectations. That night, alone in her apartment, Maxie glanced at the ring she'd had been so certain of and carefully placed it on the table. Her heart remained a battlefield, and her future was unknown, but for the first time since waking up, she felt a sense of serenity, because she finally realized that love was about selecting herself first, not the man who appeared great on paper or shared her past. Still, she knew it wasn't over. Port Charles lived on unresolved business, and she knew it deep down. Nathan wasn't going to quit up, and Spinelli wasn't going anywhere. The question was not which man she would select, but whether she would have the courage to follow her heart, regardless of the repercussions. And when she fell asleep, Maxie had another dream, but this time it wasn't a nightmare. It was a future she had never imagined, one in which she stood in the same church, holding the same bouquet, but this time her smile was genuine and her heart was confident. The only question was who will stand at the altar on that day. Nathan, Spinelli, or possibly someone unexpected. Jordan was pacing in her office, the soft hum of the air conditioner doing little to settle her mind. The Port Charles Police Department was already overburdened with pending investigations, but what she had recently learned threatened to upend all she believed she knew about the people closest to her. The toxicology reports had finally arrived, and the findings made her stomach plummet. The poison that almost killed Maxie wasn't simply uncommon, it was practically difficult to obtain without connections. And according to the evidence, it was not a random attack. Rather, it was targeted, planned, and considerably more intimate than anyone had anticipated. Jordan realized she couldn't afford to make a mistake with this one. One incorrect move and the real culprit could flee, leaving Maxie defenseless and everyone else in danger. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the tiny file in front of her, going over every detail she'd gathered thus far. Maxie fainted unexpectedly during a lunch meeting at the Metro Court. At first, it appeared to be a case of food sickness or tiredness, but when physicians discovered evidence of a highly complex toxin, everything changed. This was not an accident. Someone has been planning this for weeks, possibly months. Jordan kept watching the restaurant's security footage, studying everyone who came near Maxie's table. A waiter, 2 kitchen employees, and a man from the next table all cleared. But there was one minor feature that nagged her, something inconspicuous that most people would have overlooked: the glass. Maxie's beverage had been switched. The camera angle wasn't ideal, but Jordan noticed a shadowy figure lurking near the service station at just the right moment. Whoever it was knew how to avoid getting apprehended. Jordan closed her eyes and took a long breath, realizing that this discovery had put her in danger. If the poisoner knew the probe was winding down, they could attempt again. This time Maxie may not survive. She took up the phone and contacted her most trusted detective, Dante, to update him on the latest developments. Dante came within minutes, his expression stern as Jordan laid out the evidence on the table between them. He grimaced as she spoke, immediately thinking of plausible suspects. "This isn't random," Dante said, his voice low but steady. "Someone close to her wanted her out. Someone she can trust." This idea weighed heavily on both of them. Maxie had already been through a lot over the years, including losing Nathan, dealing with custody battles, and navigating tumultuous relationships. Someone coming for her now, and in such a cold, calculating manner, indicated that this was more than just a matter of revenge. Something bigger was going on, something related to secrets buried deep within her circle. Jordan despised the concept, yet all evidence led inwards. She'd have to start questioning Maxie's friends, family, and co-workers, all of whom she'd never suspect of anything. Meanwhile, Maxie was steadily recovering at General Hospital, but her mind was not at ease. The physical pain was bearable, but the dread that someone had attempted to kill her was far worse. She tightened the hospital blanket over herself, attempting to make sense of what had happened. Mac and Felicia had been at her bedside since they received the call, enraged and terrified in equal measure. Felicia continued to pace the room, muttering under her breath about keeping Maxie safe, while Mac discreetly planned to do his own digging. Maxie tried to soothe them, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her stomach. Whoever did this was not finished. Jordan arrived at the hospital later that evening, and Maxie noticed the stress on her face. Jordan didn't want to overwhelm her, but she couldn't help but ask difficult questions. Maxie went over everyone she'd recently interacted with: colleagues at Deception, friends, business associates, and even casual acquaintances. At first, it was impossible to discern a motivation, but when Jordan explained that the poison employed was an exotic substance linked to a rare cosmetic preservative, Maxie frozen. A memory suddenly came flooding back. Deception had lately received a shipment of the precise preservative for their next product launch, and few people were aware of it. That greatly reduced the list. Jordan's pulse beat as she typed down the names. If the toxin originated within Deception, it implied that someone with direct access had used it on Maxie. That was a harsh realization because it implied betrayal from within her professional group. Could it be Brooke Lynn, who is still holding grudges from the past? Was it someone from the lab, perhaps someone out for revenge after being fired? Or was there a corporate sabotage angle? An opponent from a competing company prepared to go to any length to harm Deception's reputation? Dante soon joined them, briefing Maxie on their working theory. She was shaken, but it also helped her concentrate. "If someone at Deception wants me out of the way," she added quietly, "then they won't stop at this." Jordan concurred, making her conclusion clear. Maxie needed to be under guarded supervision. Maxie first resisted, claiming she could handle herself, but Dante made it clear that this was not a suggestion. "We're dealing with someone careful, someone patient," he stated firmly. "Next time they won't miss." Back at the PCPD, Jordan delved deeper into Deception's employment and financial records. That's when she discovered something troubling. A sequence of discrete, unlawful transactions performed under a fictitious vendor name related to the procurement of chemicals, including the same preservative used in the poison. The paper trail pointed back to a single employee who had access to prohibited documents. Jordan's chest clenched as she saw the name of someone Maxie had implicitly trusted and who had been by her side for years. But Jordan wasn't ready to face them yet. She needed more proof before making an arrest, and she didn't want to tip off the suspect. That night, she planned monitoring of the suspect's activities and stationed an undercover detective near Maxie's hospital room. The strain increased with each passing hour. Jordan had no idea, however, that the suspect had already passed her. A late-night visitor entered the hospital, wearing scrubs and carrying a small medical kit. The cameras only captured a glimpse of their faces, but Dante was able to establish their identification afterward. They intended to sneak into Maxie's room and finish what they had started, but as they approached the door, an officer stopped them. The culprit fled, fleeing into the stairway before anyone could apprehend them. This botched attempt sent shockwaves through the inquiry. Jordan realized immediately that whatever was behind this wasn't just experimenting or playing games. It was deliberate murder. She heightened security around Maxie and convened an emergency meeting with Dante, Mac, and Felicia. They had to presume the assailant will attempt again and anticipate their next move. Jordan spent the next few days putting together more pieces of the puzzle. Motives emerged, including jealousy, money, and retribution, but one stood out above the rest. Someone had been siphoning funds from deception for months, and Maxie had unintentionally come dangerously close to discovering it. Taking her out of the picture was not a personal matter. It was business. The revelation reduced their suspect list to only 2 persons, but before Jordan could make an arrest, another bombshell dropped. A second victim was found poisoned. Someone from inside deception who had been secretly assisting Jordan in his investigation. That immediately raised the stakes, revealing that the poisoner was killing anyone who threatened to expose them. Maxie burst into tears as she heard the news, scared that more of her loved ones might be wounded. However, this simply made Jordan more determined. She planned a sting operation with Dante's assistance, luring the suspect with fake financial data intended to cause fear. It works. Within days, the suspect fell for the bait, showing up at a concealed storage container where the stolen monies were transferred. Jordan and Dante were waiting. The arrest was swift but harsh, and the truth out almost instantly. The poisoner wasn't an outside adversary or distant enemy. Rather, he was someone frighteningly near to Maxie, seeming to support her while covertly conspiring against her. The treachery hurt everyone hard, especially Maxie, who was forced to reconcile her broken trust. Even after the arrest, Jordan understood the case wasn't done. Someone else had paid for the chemicals, someone in a position of power who remained unknown. Jordan vowed herself that she would not stop until every last piece of this scheme was uncovered. The war has only barely started.